Rosa String Works Workshop. Today I've got this, I think this is a late 50s Gibson J50. It needs a little bit of bridge work, and as I'm feeling it on the inside, I think it might need a little internal work too. I'll go ahead and set it down and show you what I'm thinking. So right off the bat you can see I'm taking this card and it slides underneath the bridge. And this is one of those old adjustable bridges that Gibson did. And those are usually the #1 culprit to any problem. The top is bulged up really badly. I don't know how well you can see it there, but if I pull out straight edge, set it on there, I think you can probably see that. It's sitting here and it's dished out on both sides really, really badly. As I'm feeling inside, I think this brace that runs kind of in here is loose. I can kind of feel it give. So I think that might be part of our problem. And the other part being this bridge. This bridge is going to have to come off, so I think I'm going to get ready to do that first. Next thing I'll have to do is get the screws out of the 2 dots. I'll probably take a wrench on the inside and loosen up the nuts on the inside and see if I can't push the dots up. Make these a little bit easier. So I got the nuts off of the inside of the screws on the inside of the guitar, but I couldn't get them to push through, so they're still in there. I'm not too worried about it yet. What I've got going now is, you can kind of see it here in the corner, the bridge removal tool is heating up. I also have the oven for the tools heating up with the tools in them, so I'm getting everything warm so we can get ready to take this bridge off of here. So there's nothing mechanical holding it down anymore. The screws are still in there, so I got to be mindful of that, but I think once I get it started, they should have a little more give and I should be able to get them out. I also took the nuts off the inside of the studs for the adjustable saddle, so they should be loose as well, although they're not holding the bridge in at all, so it shouldn't be too much of a difference. So as soon as everything is warm, we'll come back and we'll try to get this bridge off of here. Alright, so everything just finally got up to temperature. I'm ready to start doing this. So I'm going to let this get the bridge warm, and then I'll stick a tool in there. I might just see how difficult it's going to be, and actually I'm going to put a piece of tape down on the finish just to see if it's going to help any to not scar it up. Yeah, that's just sliding right in there. Basically the whole way through. That kind of gives you an idea how far up this has come. The customer said in the email that this has been worked on before for the same problem. And that doesn't surprise me at all. I'll try to bring you into a better spot. Maybe that's a little bit better. Go ahead and stick this back on here for just a minute or so. But it doesn't surprise me at all that this has been worked on before. These bridges like to come up. You know, we were talking earlier, Jerry and I, and a visitor we have in the shop, and probably 9 out of 10 of these J50s or J45s that come in.
Well, I changed my whole life. No more corporate strife. Put your alarm clock away.
There we go. Maybe now I'm finished. Oh my goodness, that is bad. I don't know how well it's coming across on the camera, but it is super lifted across his back compared to here. This is the flat, and then there's a hill. It is really, really bad. I'll try to show you. I don't know if you can see it like that, the amount of how much uphill this goes or how much of a hill there is here. It is unbelievable, the bulge that's been pulled in this. In just that short area, it goes from flat to that much higher. Wow. Okay, well, I guess the next step is to get these two studs out of there. I'll see what I can come up with to do that. Alright, well this one came out really easy, and I'm hoping the other one does as well. What I've got is the screw that went into it through a little piece of wood, and I'm going to kind of angle it up on this other one, and hopefully as I tighten it, it'll bring the stud closer to the screw, since the screw can't go any closer to the stud. Looks like that's it. Almost. I hope you can see what I'm doing. I think so. There's that one. So we got those out of there. Now we'll move on to whatever's next, and I'm not real sure. I'm going to do some inspection on the inside. This brace along here is definitely loose. I can feel it flex free of the top. Thing is, the bridge plate is warped, but not loose at all, which is kind of a bummer, because it would have been nice to put a nice new flat one in. I don't think anything else is loose. Whew. I'm looking at some of the cracks along here. There's a crack forming, I guess it's a separation where each piece meets. And I don't think it's actually separated, or maybe the last person who worked on this closed it. Because it doesn't seem to be open. I'm going to think about where we go from here, and then once I decide on something, we'll move on, but don't want to go rushing in.
Caleb brought me this guitar for a second opinion, you know, kind of like you do when you go to the doctor and you need real bad surgery. You always try to get a second opinion. Well, I think I can let you all form your own second opinion. Take a look at this. Now, keep in mind, this is a flat top. This should be elevated above this flat top, right? I'm laying this down on there flat, and I'm sliding it forward. Did you see it hit the end of that? Nope, you didn't see that, because this is so much higher than the fretboard. Now, there's no bridge here, guys. Keep that in mind. How do you get there from here? I've never seen that before. I don't think I've actually ever seen that. I've seen it pretty close to that, but I think that's as bad as it gets right there. Wow. In fact, it's not even touching. Yeah, actually it is. It's just barely touching that last fret, but out here it's already almost a 1/4 inch above it. No, it's about 1/8 inch above it. Out here it's about 1/8 inch above it. Oh my gosh, that thing is warped. It's really bad. So we're trying to come up with our opinion of what to do about it, and I haven't actually looked inside it yet, so I'm going to look inside here and see if I can offer an opinion. Yeah, there's a loose brace back there, I'm pretty sure. The X bracing is actually pretty light on this, fairly dainty bracing. Which would kind of explain why the bridge plate is, well, unless that's plywood, which I think it might be.
I didn't, but
I'm not 100% sure. It could be plywood, it could just be a solid piece of maple. It appears to be solid maple at the moment, but it really has the look of plywood in a way to me, but on the other hand, it's probably solid. It does look solid. But it's completely distorted. Yeah, you ain't fixing it from here. You got to go somewhere else to fix that. I mean, seriously, this is in bad shape. I'm really not sure what to tell him to do. My first instinct would be to try to flatten this out and press it flat and just try to mechanically press it flat. You know, like maybe put in something big and thick and heavy inside here, put a flat board over the top, put clamps between them, between the heavy thing inside and the heavy thing out here, and just try to physically press it flat. And leave it that way for a day or two and see what that does. I don't think that's going to fix the whole problem.
might get us more in the right.
But it might head us in the right direction, and then maybe have to tear out the bridge plate, which I hate to do because the bridge plate itself looks pretty good. Really, it doesn't look bad, but it's warped. You can feel the bridge plate is warped. So my thought is we'd have to tear out this bridge plate and replace it with a larger Paduk bridge plate that won't warp so easy and cover a bigger area, because we'd have to cover way back here in order to fix this. You can't just fix it in this area and expect to pull a giant hump. The hump is between my fingers right here. This whole area is just humped up like crazy. It's really bad. It's seriously one of the worst I've ever seen. I've probably seen them just as bad and don't remember, but it's as bad as any I've seen, for sure. I mean, that right there speaks volumes. When you can lay this flat on the guitar back here, it's as flat as I can get it, and it's above the fretboard. So, Caleb, my friend, you've got your work cut out for you on that one. That's all I can tell you.
Well, you saw Jerry's suggestion that I clamp this flat, and now you're seeing me do it. I got a caul on the inside up against the bridge plate area and a little bit further back. And I've got 3 of these clamps sitting here, just barely tight, so I'm going to go ahead and tighten them down a little bit more. I rounded all the edges off of this board just to be safe. More or less, I'm just gonna let this sit for a while, a couple days maybe, and then we'll come back and see what it looks like. Well, I'm back at this Gibson now. This is Wednesday. It's sat up since Monday. I'm going to try to unclamp it and see where we're at. I hope that we have some improvement. That would be nice. I think I'm going to loosen these just a little bit. Just about got this all the way off of here. You can see I ended up going with a larger board. This was at Jerry's suggestion. Something to cover the area a little bit better. That still doesn't look good. I'm going to get the straight edge. We'll see if it's as bad as it was. So I need to catch you up here. Keeping this clamped up really didn't do anything. It might look a little bit better by the eye, but it's not, because we're still floating above the fretboard. So anyway, we've moved on from that. What I've started to do now is try to get the bridge plate out, and I've been using the heating tool to warm it up real good, and I'm gonna stick it back in there. And I've actually got the corner, this corner, pulled away from the top, so I am getting somewhere. The other problem I'm having is I can't get the prying tool all the way back into here because of this brace that runs like right in here. It's just too tight for me to get into. But I'm gonna get this nice and warm again, and I think we might be able to make some good progress at this. I'm not gonna film me just sitting here holding this in here, but I might film it once I get to prying on it again. I can feel it coming. You can see I hope you can see it. I don't know how well you can. But the pry tool is sticking through the holes, or I can see it through the holes. I'm trying not to pry against the top because I can bust the top doing that. Well, I'm gonna have to turn it around, and you're not gonna be able to see what I'm doing, so I'm gonna go ahead and turn the camera off, but I am making progress. Well, I'll admit that I passed it off to Jerry and had him take a look at it, and he got the rest of the bridge plate out, but between the two of us, and admittedly mostly me, we've done a little bit of damage in here, and I'm gonna start working on getting it cleaned up. I've got this board clamped across here to keep it flat, or to work it flat maybe, moreover. And the biggest break really is the seam. The center seam has come undone, so I'm going to try to get that glued back together. Actually, I'm going to take this back off so I can get some glue in there all the way. I've already got a little piece that fell out, magneted back in there. Need to get a little bit of parchment paper for under the board. Just using my finger to move it around, and I can kind of move the crack up and down as I get glue around it. And that's worked pretty good, so I'm going to go ahead and stick this on here. I'll clamp this back down flat. I think I want to get a bar running across so I can put a wedge in, or maybe I can fit a wedge in there. That's probably what I can do. Got a little wedge here. I'm going to try to just... I'm sticking a wedge underneath this. I need a bigger one. I'd have been more prepped if I had thought of this before, but this is actually a pretty good idea. This way it keeps the top pressed a little more flat, and it seems to squeeze out a bit more glue. Alright, so I'm going to give this some time to dry. The other thing I'm going to have to do is, I don't know if you can see them anymore, but those holes where the studs were, I'm going to have to fill. So I may start looking for a piece to cut out in those circles to fill those, and this, so that when I go to glue the bridge plate on, the new one that is, I won't have any gaps, no voids. That's just glue. That's the idea. So I've been working on this for a little while. I've made a bunch of plugs. I've gone ahead and plugged these. That I think it would made sense to go ahead and plug everything just to get glue in the hole and make sure everything was secure. I think we're ready to move on. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put this over here just because there's a couple of spots where I'm not 100% sure that glue won't squeeze through, because I'm getting ready to work on the bridge plate, I think. So I'm going to put this on here and then put our big flat board back to clamp the top flat again. I've got started on the bridge plate. Here's a piece of Paduke I'm going to use. This is about 120 thousandths thick. The old one was somewhere between 100 and 110. So that's a little bit thicker than the old one was. I'm going to go ahead and clamp this board down while I'm thinking about it. And this will be good to clamp against because I know it's flat. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the pieces of the old bridge plate to get the angles I need, which will be this one and this one. And I'm going to extend this one out a little bit in this direction, but probably a little bit more this way, because this is where most of the hump was on this side of the bridge plate. So we'll make this a little bit bigger than this one was. And I want to work on that here for a second, and I'll bring you back once I get it cut out. And I'll show you kind of what it looks like. So I've got this bridge plate made. You saw the big piece. This is it cut down, and I've rounded the edges off just a little bit. I've scratched up the back, and then I wiped it down with some thinner to get it nice and clean, so the glue will have a good surface to stick to. I've got a caul ready to go on top of it, and I've got some clamps ready, so I think I'm ready to glue this thing in. The question is the glue ready? The answer is no. So I guess, here we go.
No more conference calls and no meetings in the halls and no business to conduct in a bar and no self-serving boss nor the threat of the loss of the paycheck that I've earned 8 to 5, 'cause I'll be out on that.
I just pulled the clamp off of this Gibson, and it has definitely flattened out the bridge area. The new bridge plate, that is. And you can see that really well like this, because I'm hitting here and in the back. The thing is, there's still a little bit of a bulge back here, and I almost forgot that's where that brace is loose. So I'm going to try to press this back flat with this board, same one we've been using, and then I'll find a way to glue that brace back in, and that should help hold it flat. So we should have fixed our problem between the two glue ups on the inside. But I think we're doing good. I'm just kind of going to figure out how I'm going to get glue underneath this brace, this one here, on the inside, because it's not loose. I don't think it's loose at the end. I think it's just loose in the center, and part of that may be because the bridge was pulling the top, but the brace was staying flat. So it just came unglued. Because I can feel it wiggle. So there's some I'm not real sure how I'm going to get glue under there. I'm also not real sure how I'm going to clamp it. I might be able to just wedge a stick in and wedge it from the back, and that would work. But I'd have to get glue in there first. I'm not 100% sure how I'm going to do that. So I'm going to do some looking at it, get the mirror out, see what the best way to do this is, and we'll go from there. I suppose you just saw me talk about trying to get this brace fixed. I've gone ahead and done it. There wasn't much of a good way to show you what I was doing, so I just went ahead and did it. What I ended up doing was getting glue on a brush and working it underneath the brace. And then wedging it with a stick I made specifically for doing this, so it was just the right size. Here's the stick. This is clamped up while I went to lunch, so I'm ready to take this apart. And we can start working on getting a bridge placed, I think. It's definitely feeling better. I think actually what I'm going to do is just clean this up a little bit, and then we'll start working on getting the bridge placed. So first things first, this is the old bridge, and I don't see a whole lot of point in putting this back on there once I got this off. So this is the bridge I made. You can see they match pretty well. This one's a little bit darker, but that happens with age. I think this is looking really good, and it's slightly, I mean just very slightly larger. So I'm going to use this so we can start to get everything intonated. You can see I've got the removable tail piece on here. I've got a little saddle I'm going to use. Now for strings, we are currently out of the D'Addario EJ26, the regular lights. Jerry ordered them and they were put on back order. So this is something we had, and this will be fine. They're the same phosphor bronze, the same gauges. They're just the Martin brand. So I'm going to use these. Right now I just need the 2 outside strings. If I can open it. They package these a little weird. Because in here is the 1st and the 4th. You know, typically, or at least with the D'Addario ones, the 1st and 2nd are wound together, the 3rd and 4th are wound together, and the 5th or 6th are wound together. But in here it's the 1st and the 4th, 2nd and the 5th, the 3rd and the 6th.
Where I can reach the first branch of that corporate tree grown from on high. I don't own it, I just manage its worth. It's a small slice of heaven placed down here on earth. Care for its trees.
Well, I've been fiddling with this for a little while, and I've even had Jerry come take a look at it. And he said it was looking pretty good. I'm going to try to make sure that I'm sitting square. I'm pretty happy with where it's at. You can see it's sitting pretty good. I've got some lines marked on the bridge. You probably can't see them because they're in pencil. But I've got a center line marked here. And that's the center between this outside where it starts to slope down. And that helped me find about where I wanted my strings to end up. You know, once they're totally as far out as I can get them. But, you know, not so far out that they're falling off the fretboard. I can actually move them out there if I wanted to. Something like that. But I got this intonated pretty well. I'm pretty happy with where it's sitting. Where it was sitting. I've also marked it with pencil along the front edge, which is the more important edge because it's coming up and over the saddle that way. You want that to be the last point of contact. That's pretty close. And I'll check the intonation one more time, but I think we're just about ready to make a mark around the bridge. I had a pick. I lost it. Here it is. Ouch. So maybe I'll check it where you can see it. I'll try to check it where you can see it. It's not going to buzz. This is sharp. That's spot on. Just a little flat. Well, that high E is just floating on just a hair flat, but it is doing it on both the open note and the 12, so I think it's good. I'm going to go through and I'm going to mark the front of the saddle just one more time, make sure I got it good. I'm doing that with a really fine mechanical pencil. Now I think it's time to score around the outside of the bridge. To do that, I'm going to use the pointed X-Acto knife and just run it along. I'm going to try to do it fairly softly. I don't want to push too hard, because that's how you end up making a bigger mess than you want. So I'm getting ready to cut the saddle slot in this. This is the first time I've done this since Jerry has screwed these two pieces to this board, and I gotta say this is definitely a lot nicer. Nothing moves this way. And I've got it all set up, except for depth. I'm all set up to go. This rides right where I want it to. It's looking really good. So need to plug it in and lower the depth, and I think we're ready to go.
I know they won't miss me when I tell them I'm history. That's okay, for I've got a plan. And there'll be no regret, no hard feelings, no debt. We're all doing the best we can. So here is my last word. Some may think it absurd, but I know that someday you'll find it's better to leave than to stay and to grieve.
So now that I've got a saddle slot in the bridge, I'm working on getting the finish off on the footprint for it on the guitar. I've got Jerry's scraping tool here. He uses this to take the finish off here. And because I already scored all the way around it, it shouldn't be too difficult to just knock the finish off. I'm just trying to knock the finish off. I'm not trying to take any wood off, because I don't want to make it any weaker than it has to be. But I want to go through and make sure I get all the finish off all the way around, and then the bridge should sit in place and not move too much. I'll go ahead and finish this up, and I'll bring you back when I think I'm ready to put the bridge on. Alright, I think I am just about ready to glue this down. I've got this board back on here to help keep this as flat as I can. I'm just trying to do everything I can to keep this flat. The thing I still need to do is wipe the back down with acetone. So I've got some on my towel here. You can see how much oil I'm getting off of there. Now I think we're ready to go. I've got some clamps sitting here ready to clamp it up. I've got a caul for the inside. I'm just going to open these clamps up so I know I can get them all the way in.
Instead of a paycheck, you'll have peace of mind. I don't want it to just manage its worth. It's a small slice of heaven placed down here on earth. I care for his trees, I water his sun. I don't know it, I just read it from God.
Well, this bridge sat up over the weekend, clamped up. I've already started on a saddle for it. It's getting close to where I want it to be, but first thing I'm going to do is do a really light fret leveling on this, just to make sure they're good. So I'll level them, I'll crown them, and I'll polish them. I'll show you a little bit of it, but I probably won't show the whole thing, but I'll start with the file and really lightly work my way down. There are some grooves in these first 2 or 3 frets, so I'm going to kind of hit them and then make sure it's all feathered out so it's relatively the same. That's probably good for that. Now I'll get the crowning file and I'll have the biggest one, which is already in it. I need to tighten this just a hair. There we go. Now I'll go through and crown the frets. Try to bring it in a little closer so you can see. I work the ends to make sure they're rounded over. I crowned all of these frets. Now I'm going back through with some 600, and I'm not worried too much about the fretboard because it needed cleaned up pretty much anyway, and this just speeds me up in the long run. So I'm running this way, and they're starting to look really good. Now the last thing I'll do to the frets is use the semi-chrome polish to finish them off, and they will look brand new once I'm done. Alright, the frets themselves are done. Now what I'm doing is I'm going through with the razor blade and cleaning up the fretboard. There's a lot of fingernail grooves in this fretboard, and I'm not going to work them all out, but I will get started on mitigating them. I think the last thing I have to do before we start setup is oil the fretboard, and I'll oil the bridge at the same time. So I'll bring you back when I'm ready to do that. So now that I've got all the frets nice and leveled, everything's nice and oiled and cleaned up, I'm working on getting the strings on here. I'm working on it. And it's gonna sit a little high right now. That's better than sitting a little low.
I don't want it to just manage its work.
Well, I've got all the strings on here and I'm just getting it up to pitch. The taper gauge, I'll check the height. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. So I'll slide this under at the 12th fret. We're still sitting high, about 110 thousandths on the low E, and about 100 thousandths. Yeah, 100 thousandths on the high E, and I want it to be about 80 and 90. So 100 thousandths, 20 and 20. That's 20 thousandths off each side, which is 40 thousandths off the saddle because you got to double it at the saddle. So I'll take 40 thousandths off of the whole saddle, and then we should be sitting right where we want to be. So since I'm removing the string, well, I'm loosening the strings again, I'm going to go ahead and oil the tuners since they're going to get quite a bit of turning, and I've noticed they're just a little stiff. So I'll put a dot of 3-in-1 oil in there, and I'll try to not make a big mess. Alright, there we go. I'll clean up any excess. I'll work them. I think they're working better. Something else that's been done, and I had Jerry do it, was straighten out these tuners. They were actually not, the top two were bent, you know, as we see very often. So I had Jerry straighten those out because I'd rather he break them than I break them. But really, they did need straightened out, and they are now. At least they're a lot better. You don't really notice by just looking at them. But those are turning a lot easier now. So now I get back to working on the saddle. So I took the 40 thousandths off the saddle, and I'm really happy with the way it's looking. It's sitting at about 75 thousandths on the high E, and about 90 thousandths on the low E, which is fine by me. That's good for most people. So I'm going to leave it there. And one more thing I thought I would do was I'd take a little bit of lacquer and just a toothpick and drop fill a couple of spots on the top where it's chipped out or the lacquer's gone missing more or less. I've already got this one, but there's a couple of spots over here. I thought I'd just try and touch them up since it's here, and I can. At least this should protect the wood for a little while longer. That's probably pretty good. I'll go ahead and let those set up totally, and then this thing should just about be ready to go on its way. Alright, well I think this Gibson J50 is ready to go on its way. Consider it's come a long way considering it was as bad of a belly bulge as Jerry's ever seen. We've got it a lot flatter now. And new bridge on there, and I think that bridge is going to help out a lot. New bigger bridge plate will help a lot in keeping it flat. It's definitely more playable than it was, since I would have said it was probably unplayable. I'll give you a little here, how it sounds. But I think it's a pretty good sounding guitar now that we've got it playable and the action's good. And you know, I did a second to clean up the top as well, and it used to be really dull over on this side, and you can probably see the light there. It's shining nice and clear all the way around. And I think overall we did some good work to this, getting it flattened out, getting it playable. So I'll set this aside for Jerry to look at, and then we can get this on its way. Hope you enjoyed watching this little bit of bulge fighting on this Gibson. If you did, a thumbs up would be much appreciated, and even more appreciated would be a subscribe. Thanks for watching.